tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Oh, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menners, and I'm recording this at 4 a.m. Sydney time, and Australia are on the brink of a humiliating exit from the T20 World Cup. They have been thrashed by Sri Lanka by 8 wickets. That comes after the defeat to Zimbabwe, and now it looks like Australia will not even qualify for the Super 8 stage at the tournament. This comes after a litany of disasters at T20 World Cups for Australia. They won the tournament in 2021, but they failed to qualify for the semi-finals in the last 2 tournaments. But this tournament appears to be a new low. They won't get out of the group stage. They will be eliminated. And this has been a brainless campaign underpinned by brainless selections in this game today against Sri Lanka. And they are careering towards an early exit from this T20 campaign. It was the match was marred by a stunning collapse from Australia. Mitch Marsh came back into the side with Travis Head, and it seemed like they had got Australia off to a winning start. They were none for 104 after 8.3 overs, but then after that, they collapsed with the bat. They underperformed terribly with the ball, and the selection of the team was woeful. Australia were all out for 181. Australia lost 6 for 21 in the last 4 overs. Before the first wicket, they scored none for 104 after 8.3 overs. Head and Marsh were superb. They were going at over 12 runs per over. And I thought, I'm going to have egg on my face. This Australian team might turn it around. But alas, it was not true. After Travis Head was out, Australia lost 10 for 77 in 11.3 overs, going at a run rate of under 7. Where was Steve Smith, I ask you? He was sitting on the sidelines, not selected. Then in Australia's last 4 overs, they lost 6 for 21. So there were 2 collapses for Australia. They lost 4 for 26 after the opening partnership and 6 for 21 at the end. Just a woeful batting performance from Australia. So many of the players look out of form. Green, Maxwell, David, Stoinis doesn't look in good form. I mean, Connolly, this team was shocking, and they looked it with the bat. And then Sri Lanka chased it down 2 for 184. Pathum Nissanka, a superb century, 100 not out of just 52 deliveries. Kusal Mendes made 51. Those two came together after the early wicket of Pereira, but they put on a beautiful partnership. And then Nissanka finished it off with a grand century in front of an adoring home crowd in Kandy. That puts Sri Lanka through to the next round of the T20 World Cup. And Australia has a very, very, very slim chance, and they do not deserve to go through. But Australia now are relying on Zimbabwe being beaten by Sri Lanka and Ireland, and being beaten quite heavily in those games. And then Australia will need to beat Oman by a huge margin to increase their net run rate to get above Zimbabwe or Ireland. So Australia do not deserve to go through. The fate is out of their hands. And I said going into this tournament, Australia, for some reason, in T20 World Cups, can't get it together. We're better in 50-over World Cups, no doubt about it. And it was evidenced tonight with brainless selection. So this afternoon, the selectors teased us. They brought in Steve Smith to the World Cup squad. He was officially added, so he was available for selection tonight, but then he wasn't included in the 11. Australia made 3 perplexing changes, mad changes, I tell you, mad changes. Well, Mitch Marsh coming back, that wasn't mad, but Xavier Bartlett coming back for Ben Dwarshuis, I don't know why they did that. Cooper Connolly came in and out went Matt Renshaw, and Kuhneman went out. So you basically had Renshaw, our best player in the first 2 games, our most informed player, dropped. Connolly, for some reason, brought in. And then you had Kuhneman left out on a spinning deck in Kandy. And Kuhneman has had a lot of success in Sri Lanka in a game Australia needed to win in spinning conditions. They were relying on Cooper Connolly's spinners to win us a game. Are you kidding? And in Australia's last 2 games, we've taken 4 wickets. In the last game, we took 2 wickets. In this game, 2 wickets. Our attack is toothless. And for them to bring in Connolly at this stage was ridiculous. And Smith is on the sidelines, not playing. I mean, how much we needed him in those middle overs when Australia was batting. So Cameron Green batted at 3 for Australia. There is no way he needed to be in that team. He did not bowl. He batted at 3. He did nothing. Steve Smith could have been at 3. If the selectors wanted to keep Head and Marsh together, fine. There was a spot for Smith at 3. And look, there was another spot. If you didn't want Connolly in there, you could have Smith. But just on Green alone, on that spinning deck, you did not need his bowling, and they should have gone with Smith. I mean, Smith is in better form than Green. He's in better form than Connolly. He's in better form than Tim David. Now, Tim David's come off an injury, but it's all going to come for too late for the Aussies. They've been arrogant. They just took it for granted that they would get through the opening rounds and they could go in with all these injuries and players out of form. Well, it's backfired poorly on the Australians. It's backfired in such a big way. Maxwell looks in very, very poor form. You've got to pick Maxwell, though, because, he does bring it with the bat and ball, and he can turn it on, but just too many players out of form for Australia. And the one player in form, Steve Smith, not picked. Matt Renshaw, as I said, performed well, not picked. So, this was just a perplexing selection. And, you look at Australia's bowling figures in the end, they were absolutely torched. I mean, Xavier Bartlett, 2 overs, none for 22. Good selection. Marcus Stoinis, 4 overs, 2 for 46. He opened the bowling. Yeah, I've got to say, if Marcus Stoinis is your opening bowler, that's not a good attack. And that's no offense to Stoinis. I think he's a good T20 cricketer. Nathan Ellis, 3 overs, none for 32. He didn't do well. Cooper Connolly, 3 overs, none for 27. Adam Zampa, 4 overs, none for 41. Glenn Maxwell, 2 overs, none for 16. They really needed Kuhneman in there. They desperately needed another frontline spinner to at least try and put some pressure on Sri Lanka at the back end of that chase. But for some reason, they just got the team wrong. They got the batting wrong without Smith, and they got the bowling wrong. They probably could have picked Kuhneman ahead of Bartlett. You didn't even need Bartlett. So just an all-round brainless campaign from the Australians in this T20 World Cup, and they are going home in humiliating fashion after the first round. I mean, this has been an unmitigated disaster, and you can blame injuries to Cummins and Hazelwood and Stark's retirement, but in the end, they were arrogant. They came in thinking they could cruise through to the next round in India, and it hasn't happened. Just a few details of the game. So, and just want to say, it was so upsetting to see Smith running around in the field at the end there, and he just it was so frustrating that he hadn't been given an opportunity to bat, because had Australia they finished 181. Had they got another 20, it would have been a different game. But they just had no one capable in those conditions after Head and Marsh got out. It's just a mystifying performance by McDonald and Bailey and the selectors, and they will have a lot to answer to. And look, after Justin Langer won the World Cup in 2021 in the T20 format, Australia have been desperately short of performances in the T20 World Cup. And it is the one area of Australian cricket we are not good at is T20 World Cups. And this tournament is one of the is obviously just like all the other ones, but this is not the first time we haven't made it past the first round. I think if you go back, there's a couple of other times we've been knocked out very early. So Australia even got a favour. Sri Lanka won the toss and elected to bowl first, and I think actually Australia probably fancied setting a target after struggling in those conditions throughout the tournament. And they got off to a magic start. Head and Marsh were on absolute fire. They were none for 70 after 6 overs, Australia. And, Travis Head brought up his 50 off just 27 balls. And he did some kind of strange celebration where he sprayed himself with perfume or deodorant. And then Marsh did the celebration when he brought up his 50. But then Head was out for 56 off 29. Australia won for 104 after 8.3 overs. As I said, cruising at over 12 runs per over, looking like we're going to set a huge target. But the game changed as soon as Head got out. Green came out and looked, as I said, woefully out of form. He was stumped for 3 off 7 deliveries. Australia 2 for 110. Then Marsh went. He was out for 54 off 27. LBW to Hamantha. It was an interesting one because it was pad then bat, but a good review by Sri Lanka. So Australia had lost 3 for 12. And then it should have been 4 for 12 when Inglis was missed first ball for a stumping. But Tim David was out not long soon after to Kamindu Mendes, and Australia were 4 for 130. So they'd lost 4 for 26 at this stage. And then, as I said, they lost that big collapse at the end of Australia were 4 for 160 after 16 overs, and then lost 6 for 21 in the last 4 overs. So it was just an all-round stinker from the Australians. And, Australia does not deserve to go through to the next round. Absolutely not. They have not been good enough. Zimbabwe looks a better T20 side, if I'm honest, than Australia. They deserve to go through. And Australia's T20 World Cup will be ending, very, very shortly. I mean, they play Oman on, I think, Saturday morning Australian time. The only advantage Australia have is if results fall their way and Zimbabwe loses, then Australia are playing the last game in the pool. So they will know exactly what they need to do to leapfrog Ireland and Zimbabwe in terms of net run rate, but they're so far behind on their net run rate. I'll give you the stats. Australia are on 2 points after 3 games, and our net run rate is 0.41. Zimbabwe's is 1.98. And Sri Lanka's is way ahead, and they've qualified, and was slightly ahead of Ireland. But if Ireland win against Zimbabwe, then their net run rate's going to go up. So, look, Australia are in an awful position, and it's their own making, and there's just no chance of them going through. I'm backing Zimbabwe to absolutely smoke Ireland. Ireland have looked pretty ordinary this World Cup, and I think Zimbabwe will absolutely smash them, and they'll go through, and that'll be it for Australia in this T20 World Cup. Australia's innings, they were all out for 181 in the last ball of the 20th over. Head top scored with 56. Marsh, second top score with 54. I mean, brave stuff. He came back with that testicle injury. There was one point you saw him diving around in the field and he looked in a bit of pain. So you have to give him credit for coming back as soon as possible. You've got to be pretty brave after you've had a ruptured testicle to get back out there. Josh Inglis was third top score with 27. Glenn Maxwell, fourth top score with 22. Australia lost 5 wickets to the spinners, and that set Sri Lanka a target of 182. Australia got an early wicket. Pereira, he was out for 1, caught it sort of deep third off Stoinis, but then from there, Nissanka and Mendes put on a beautiful partnership of 97. That got them into a really strong position. There was a period around the middle overs where Australia did apply some pressure and got that required run rate up around 10 runs per over. But then Ratnayaka and Nissanka really opened up towards the end there. Zampa went for a few runs. There was a very expensive over off his bowling. And from there, Sri Lanka never looked back, and they won after 18 overs. So Australia's net run rate took a real hammering. Australia were okay in the field. There was a misstumping late by Inglis off Ratnayaka, but I don't think it would have made much of a difference. And really confident performance from Sri Lanka. They're deserving winners, and they qualify for the next round. So I guess that's it, really. I mean, I'll be doing a deep dive into the reasons why this campaign was so bad, but I think I've outlined them a lot on the podcast. Also, I did a full episode with Stuart McGill yesterday where I went through all the cricket news. So definitely go back and listen to that one. Lots there talking about broader issues around the T20 World Cup in Australia, and then also all the domestic cricket news. But yeah, I mean, that's it. Australia, again, a turgid performance in this T20 World Cup, mystifying selections, poor cricket, and no surprises. I mean, everyone sort of just, I'm so kind of a bit mad. But if you look back at that Pakistan series before this, where Australia were hammered 3-0, the danger signs were there. But Australia, Australian selectors have been stubborn. And I think you've got to be more reactive. I mean, the fact is Australia had set up their team a certain way the last 2 years. I get that. But if players are out of form, well, you've got to change plans. I mean, you've got to be pragmatic. You can't have this all locked in, because Australia's record in T20 cricket, I did have a look at it, and it's been good in the last 2 years. But if you look at it against the really good teams, they have been found out a few times. So, there was room to change. There were injuries. There were players out of form, but stubbornness has led us to the point where Australia have lost. I mean, they just beat Ireland. Well, sorry, Ireland were pathetic, but Australia did not look good against them. And then Zimbabwe hammered us. Sri Lanka have hammered us. We've taken 4 wickets for the tournament. That's what life is like without Cummins, Hazelwood, and Stark. God, that translates into Test cricket or one-day cricket. Australia's in real trouble. But yeah, Australia lose by 8 wickets. A magic night for Sri Lanka in Kandy. But yeah, Australia, they'll be on the flight back from this T20 World Cup very, very early before the Super 8 stage. It's a real shame for the tournament, but this Australian team, they just haven't played well enough.